Okay. Welcome back to your Veriano 1711 podcast. This is your host, Marv, bringing you another episode on Genesis with someone who has specialized on that subject matter. Of course, I'm talking about Dr. John H. Walton. Dr. Walton, how are you doing today, sir?
Very good. Great to be on your show again.
It's a pleasure to have you on. And now, Dr. Walton is no stranger to the podcast. And for maybe Dr. Walton, for those who are not aware of your work, just give us a bit of a background, who you are, your credentials, books, everything, please.
I have been teaching at Wheaton for 22 years and have recently retired. I teach a lot in the Old Testament, but also in the ancient Near Eastern backgrounds of the Old Testament. And the books we've been talking about are the Lost World series. Right now, there are 8 books in the series, and they explore the text very carefully, but they also explore the ancient Near Eastern backgrounds that help us understand the text better, especially in issues that tend to be controversial. And so, the Lost World of Genesis 1, Lost World of Adam and Eve, Lost World of the Flood are some of those books in Genesis. And then most recently, what we're talking about today, New Explorations in the Lost World of Genesis, which is just updating the conversation, not through a revised edition, but through just talking about what are some of the new ways of thinking that go beyond what I've done before.
Thank you so much for that intro. That settles it. I like that. Yeah. So Dr. Walton is an unstoppable writer. And as I was saying to him off camera, we need to really take advantage of their scholarship as they are. We're having these people here, and because they are providing many insights on these subject matter that still, sparks some debates. Can we say it that way, Dr. Walton? Some
Certainly.
Debates about, yeah. And maybe we want to bring our views and arguments and ideas and interpretations. And scholars like Dr. Walton, they are guiding us through the maze here. Sometimes very difficult to, me as a layman, Dr. Walton, I feel it's almost impossible to even master some specific subject matter. Let's say Genesis. There's a lot of literature written out there.
That is absolutely true. And it's even as a professional, it's tough to keep up with it all.
Tell me about it. That doesn't give me hope. Okay, so let's begin here. I have a couple of presentations. No, sorry, slides. Do you call it? I need to correct my Latin American language right there. I have some slide here, Dr. Walton, that I would like to share with you. Just give me a moment. I want to do this in order to, what do you call it? Maybe for the sake of the audience, so they can keep track with this info. It's a lot of info, as you can see. You can go and check. I put the link about this book, so you can go on Amazon and check it out by yourself, and of course get your own copy. If you want to send someone to me as a gift, a birthday gift, please do it. Don't hesitate. Not for a moment. So I just want to make sure it's working here. Give me just a moment. It should work.
And a few of them are published in Spanish as well, as you know.
Oh yeah. Thank you for reminding me that. People, for those non-English speaking people, there are Spanish literature. Dr. Walton's books a couple of them have been translated into Spanish by Querigma. Publicaciones Querigma. That's the way you say it in Spanish. I won't ask Dr. Walton to say in Spanish. No. No. That would be a bad idea. So let me take. Yeah. Let me just take this off, and so we can go from there. I think this is the one that's working. Okay. Let me know if you can see it on your screen. Let's see. It should work. Let's see. There you go. So, Dr. Walton, Of course, I have a summary here, but in your own words, you already mentioned a couple of this, but in overall terms, the main purpose of this book, how was the idea? Maybe you come up with this idea, somebody, your son, maybe, because I mean there are contributions from your son here.
Yes, there are.
Yeah. So how this book came out? I mean, from what was the idea behind it? Please just give us a
Well,
bit of a background on there.
the first Lost World book, Lost World of Genesis 1, was published in 2009, 2010.
Hmm.
And since that time, I've been on the road a lot, talking about these ideas. And as the other books came out, been on the road talking about them. And of course, when you talk about them a lot and when you engage with audiences, um, questions come up and new ideas come up, and you think of new ways to communicate the information and new insights. I mean, it's been 15 years. And so I felt like the time was right to kind of bring everybody up to date on some of the new ideas, the new illustrations, even one or two places where I've changed my mind that can help people kind of move on in their own thinking as they continue to consider these important issues.
Thank you for that. So here I got something here, and it's an extract, if you can call it that way, from your book. So the idea of this book is to update, as Dr. Walton just put it, the discussion pertaining the last world of Genesis, primarily Genesis 1 through 3, since the lost world of the flood just came out in 2018. Wow, it's 7 years now. In most cases, and this is a book you wrote, you co-author with Tremper Longma, right?
The flood book, yes.
Yeah, the flood book. In most cases, this does not revise the previously published material, but supplements supplements it. Though on occasion, readers might find a shift in emphasis or terminology that represents some rethinking. Unavoidably, Jazz, there are topics about which I have changed my mind. That's good. I mean, for those who said Dr. Walton, he's very, very conservative. He doesn't change his mind. Oh no, he's doing it. So think again. Think again. And Dr. Walton, I think it's what do you call it? It's this distinctiveness on behalf of scholars to constantly be re-evaluating their views, their arguments. It's something, an exercise that you do most often the time, right?
It's important. The alternative is to say, I've made up my mind and I'm never going to change it no matter what new evidence or new insights come about. That would be a silly position to hold. And so the only other way to think is I'm willing to change my mind faced with new evidence or insights.
Gotcha. And that's the mindset that we all should have. Definitely. Okay, let's move on here. Okay, now, uh, I like the way you describe the way the pattern you're going to be following on your book. But before getting there, there's another quote here that I would like to let my audience know. So, in terms of synopsis, okay, of the message of Genesis 1 through 3, Dr. Walton, what can you tell us about that?
Well, as I think about it now, it has a lot to do with what I introduce as the order spectrum. That is,
Okay.
that it talks about how God set up order to begin with in chapter 1. And there it talks about cosmic order. And then in the following chapters, 2 and 3 and 4, and of course on through 11, it talks about order in the terrestrial realm and how humans are seeking order. And so, in that sense, order becomes a key focus of the book. So, the synthesis is that people are seeking order. It's what God created them to do, but our inclination is to seek order for ourselves instead of for others or for God. And
Hmm.
that leads to a lot of strategies that ultimately fail. And so these chapters are tracing those strategies, deficiencies that are addressed and resolved, yet still ultimate order is not achieved. And chapters 1 through 11 then eventually dump us into the covenant in chapter 12, which is God's strategy for producing order.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, also you talk about what do you call it? I think the word the concept is functional ontology. Maybe I'm saying it right or not. You can correct me on that. But that's a concept. What do you want to convey in terms of Genesis in this new book that maybe readers are not aware of that? Uh,
Right. So
yeah.
when I first wrote the Lost World of Genesis 1, I had come to think that the account was not intended to be an account of material creation. Certainly, God did create the material world, but I'm asking a literary question. What is the focus of the account? And so once I concluded that it was, in my view, not material in focus, I had to think of what the alternative was. If it's not material, what is it? At that time, the best descriptor I could come up with was functional. That is, that God was making it work the way he wanted with his purposes in mind. And so I talked about a functional ontology. That turned out to be very confusing to audiences. They couldn't understand what I was talking about. They misunderstood what I was talking about. Even scholars often misrepresented what I was actually
Hmm.
saying. And so that ended up being a problematic descriptor. Um, and in the next few years, I came up with an alternative, which I've already referred to, that these days, instead of talking about function, I talk about order. That was already in the first book because I talked about function as having a role and a purpose in an ordered system. But I've come to believe that it's the aspect of order that's most important. And so I've changed my terminology. It really doesn't change my view, but people have found it more understandable to talk about God bringing order than to talk about God making things functional. And so, in that sense, that's one of the changes I made is a terminology change. And it doesn't, it still is a contrast to material, but it allows, I think, for um, a much fuller explanation of what's going on in the early chapters of Genesis.
Yeah, thank you for that, Dr. Walton. Just getting the order thing, I decided to go with this videos slice, if you can call it that way, because in some way I think it captures the idea of what you're talking. Also along the way, I've been listening to you in some lectures you've been giving in the past. That the purpose, the theological message, is not about creation, like the absolute beginning. No, it is the material, the matter is actually already there, and God comes out, let there be light, and he starts ordering and assigning functions, which is something you talk a lot in your literature.
Sure, it's a matter of asking who has made the world to exist the way that it does, as what it is. And to them, that was not a material question. To them, that was a
Yeah.
question of who makes it work. When you think about getting a new job, when you sit down the first day at your desk, you probably don't ask for the architectural plan of the building you're in. You're more likely to ask for the organizational chart that says, who do I report to, and who's my boss, and who's my team, and how does this all work? And so, because that's just more important to us for our workplace. Knowing the architectural plan is of little significance, but knowing how the structure of the organization works is extremely important. And I think that when we can use analogies like that, it helps us to understand why the ancient Israelites would want to give the kind of origins discussion that they do, focused on order, not on material.
Gotcha.
When you look at the visual that you've got up there, we don't ask, I wonder what factory created the plastics for the Legos.
Yeah.
Well, but rather how are these Legos worked into a shape to whatever. So we really can understand. But, even with our computers, if I were to ask you about your computer, it's unlikely that you would talk to me about the chips on the motherboard. You would more likely talk to me about your apps and your operating systems because we get it. We understand that order
Yeah.
is important. You probably wouldn't describe to me the chemical polymers in the screen.
No,
You
I
know,
wouldn't. I would fail miserably.
yeah. So, I mean, that's just an example how even in our modern world, we're much more interested in the concept of order and function than we are in material. We know the materials are there, but we're really not interested in how the polymers got put in the screen or how the chips got put on the motherboard.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Thank you for that. Now, in terms of mythology, mythology is, I'm big on mythology, Dr. Walton. So I would like to hear from you and for our audience. How should we approach the text?
Well, one of the main things that I introduced in some of the later Lost World books, and it's included in this one, is the idea of a
Hmm.
cultural river. That is
Yes.
that every culture has its context, its cultural context. And I use the analogy of a river to indicate kind of all the things that are part of the world that we know. For modern people in the United States, we've got all sorts of things that involve science and politics and values and society and how it works, things like consumerism and expanding universe and democracy and capitalism and personal rights and social media. This is all part of our cultural river. And so it's important for us to recognize that because other cultures, even today, don't share the same cultural river. And they may or may not
Yes.
be well informed or understanding what ours is. Likewise, the ancient world had its own cultural river. And the ancient text, what we call the Bible, including the book of Genesis, are written in the context of their cultural river, their conversations, their questions, their assumptions, their issues. It's written with their cultural river in mind. It doesn't know our cultural river, it doesn't anticipate our cultural river, it doesn't assume any knowledge of our cultural river. In fact, Israelites would be baffled entirely by nearly everything in our cultural river. So that's one of the
Hmm.
methodologies that if we're going to track with the authors, which I believe we have to do if we're going to get the authority of the
Yes.
text, if we're going to track with the authors, we have to investigate their cultural river and be willing to
Hmm.
try to set our cultural river aside.
That's right. That's right.
Another way
Please
that I
sign me
get to
up with
that,
that.
another way that we get to that, and this is an analogy I've been using recently. If you
Sure.
think about having a backpack,
Okay.
a cultural backpack, let's call it, and we have words that label our backpack. It's not the manufacturer in this analogy, but you've got a word like law on your backpack, or a word like creation, or a word like history, or marriage, or sun and moon. Um, and in our backpacks, my backpack that has sun and moon on it has certain ideas in it,
Hmm.
assumptions that I have,
Yes.
understanding that I have. It's there's stuff in my backpack. Now, Israel also has a backpack that says sun and moon, but what's in their backpack? Not anything like what's in my backpack.
No.
My backpack says creation. I
Yeah.
know what's in my backpack. It's a lot about science, it's a lot about all kinds of things in our modern cultural river. But what's in Israel's backpack? We have to try to understand what's in their backpack if we're going to understand their texts.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, let's go back here. So that's the chapter two, basically. Again, as I always say, Dr. Walton, uh, no interview can do justice to a book. You know, so we're trying as one scholar. I won't spill the beans here, but I was one scholar told me, you're doing pretty good things, working with scholars on a very introductory level. And I said, Amen. Yeah, because that the thing is not to go into the weeds, right, Dr. Walton? Like very technical. No, that's more for scholars, academics. If you're a geek, then by all means go into it. Let's have fun. But we're trying to reach a wider audience here. So my friend Aitor, he's saying greetings. So that's the first thing. Now I wanna go with that third one, okay, which is the chapter 3. So Genesis.
I've lost your sound. I can't hear you anymore.
Okay, let's see. Uh,
Now I can hear you.
okay. All right. How about now?
Yep.
Oh. Let's see. Audio. Okay. What about now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, thank you. There you go. All right. So, as I was saying, chapter 3, Dr. Walton, what kind of creation account is it? Functional intelligence. So, please elaborate on that.
Sure. So we talked a little bit about what we meant by that it's not material, but that it's based on God bringing order, giving functions and a role and a purpose in an ordered system. But I think another way we can talk about that's an analogy that I offer in the book is think about when you go to a play and you get there late because of bad traffic or whatever. And so you ask the people around you, how did the play begin? And they might talk
Yes.
about when the script was written or when the theater was built or when the stage was constructed or when the cast was chosen. And those are all good answers. They're all possible answers for how did the play begin. But it's not the question you're asking. The question you're asking is what's happened since the curtain opened. And so just as we can have many different answers to the question how did the play begin, and they're all right answers, they're all good answers. We might have many different answers to the question how did the world begin. And so I introduced the idea that for the ancient world, for the ancient Israelites, they would answer that question very differently than we would. When they ask about how did the play begin, how did the world begin, they're talking more about the God setting it up to work the way that it does, rather than about God manufacturing the objects. So when he talks about the sun, moon, and stars, he doesn't talk about a fiery ball of gas and a rock orbiting the earth, reflecting the light of the sun. He talks about the fact that they govern day and night. It's what they do. And that goes back to an issue that I talked about in my first book, and that was that for them, uh, existence was not defined materially, it was defined functionally. That is, in terms of order, something exists when it's in an ordered system. And that's why the Egyptians could talk about the sea as non existent and the desert as non existent, because they were not part of the ordered system the way they understood it. So again, they even think differently about existence. Back to the backpack that says existence on it. What's in our backpack and what's in their backpack? We can't assume it's the same thing.
Yeah. Dr. Walton, they were not thinking of that we're looking on the screen, right?
Right, right. They didn't
They were
even
not
know that
thinking like gases, light, and everything.
they didn't even know
Yeah.
that the sun, moon, and stars were material physical objects. How would
Yes.
they know that? They call them lights. That's what they are to them.
Yeah. Quick question. This is something a personal question. Does the Hebrew word for light in the creation stories does have anything to do with the tabernacle? Is there any connection there? Any literary connection there?
I wouldn't necessarily think so. No,
Okay. Okay.
I mean there
Maybe
is light in the
that's
tabernacle,
just
but
me.
yeah, I mean the menorah in the tabernacle certainly gave light, but that I wouldn't see that as significant.
Okay, thank you for that. So let's move on. Okay, let's see. All right, let's see. So now we're talking about the chapter 4, Dr. Walton, Genesis 1, the seventh day. I love that number. It's my lucky number. The seventh day, and it's, you know, let me just put it right here because I just want to make sure I can read it right. So the seventh day and its significance, temple, and rest. What can you tell us about that, Dr. Walton?
So
I
in
have
Lost
something
World
here for
Genesis
you.
1, in Lost World Genesis 1, I talked about a cosmic temple. And that got some
Yeah.
pushback because people said, well, a temple designates a space that inside is sacred space and outside is not. And if you're calling the whole cosmos a temple, then where's the outside? And that was a good question, a logical question. So I started talking about the cosmos rather as sacred space. Um, Temple, of course, is sacred space, but cosmos is a different sort of sacred space because it's just talking about the fact that God is in it. Space is sacred because God is there.
Hmm.
The With regard to rest, I had talked about that as a significant element in the creation account in day 7 because God rests. But one of the things that was pointed out to me is that, of course, this is the word for rest, which is Sabbath, Shabbat, a Hebrew verb, and God rested. And that particular word talks about him ceasing or maybe pausing, but it doesn't talk about what he did. That is, uh, that's a different Hebrew word, nuach, which talks about God taking up his rest. And that's true. That's true. Day 7 does not use that second verb, but when Exodus 20 reflects back on the 7 days, it does
Hmm.
use that word. So to be precise, we would say that the seventh day in Genesis 1 is not particularly making the point of what God did rather than what he stopped doing. But
Okay.
we know what the Israelites thought about what he did because Exodus 20 clarifies that and makes that explicit. So it's just some of those nuances that I was cleaning up in the new book.
Thank you, Dr. Walton. Dr. Walton, before we continue, I have a friend. He is one of my co-hosts. I have 3 co-hosts that from time to time they help me in when we're doing interviews to scholars. He has a couple of questions. He's working on his thesis now, and he has a keen interest in your work. So, would you be okay if I can bring him on the interview so he can ask by himself those questions to you?
Sure. If that'll
Thank you,
be of
sir.
interest to your audience, I'm happy to talk about them.
No, my audience loves it, definitely. But first, I just wanted to ask you for permission. So let's do it. Let me see. I don't see this guy. Where are you? I don't see you. Okay, maybe I need to go down here. Oh, there you go. Because his name is Matthias and he's from Russia. He's not Russian per se.
Hello.
He's from
Hello, Dr. Walton.
Chile. Matthias, how are you doing? Welcome.
Hi, Dr. Walton. I had the pleasure to meeting you briefly during one of the Evangelical Theological Society meetings in the U.S., which you had an interview with Frank Turek when you talk about
Yes.
briefly. Yes,
Hmm.
I
Well, good to
remember
see
that.
you again.
Thanks.
Okay. So, Matthias, do you want to make the questions right now, or you want to wait a little bit
No,
before you
Dr.
can
Walton
go?
was finishing his point, so I will wait
Okay,
until he
thank you.
finishes.
So, Dr. Walton, as you were talking about temple rest, I got something here for you, and also for Matthias. Now that you're here, so let me just bring that here very quick, and let's see it. Because I like visuals. People like visuals, so maybe this is not Solomon's temple, but at least it's something to give you a better idea what they have in mind. So I wanted to ask you also, Dr. Walton, the seven. It's a literary technique they're using in Genesis. Um, do we see that connected in some other sections in the Pentateuch, or it's something just exclusively of Genesis?
Well, again, Exodus 20 makes the point even more clearly than Genesis does, and
Okay.
um, and that's carried forward any time that the text talks about the Sabbath, although it doesn't explicitly refer to the seventh day. We also have very important statements in Psalm 132, 13 and 14, where it talks about the temple is the place where God rests. That makes that very clear, which the other passages do not. And so it talks about the temple as a place of rest, which was a concept known throughout the ancient world. And
Okay.
then also we get from Psalm 132 the idea that when God rests in the temple, he's not sleeping, he's ruling. He rests on his
Yes.
throne, not in a bed. And so, in that sense, it gives a very
Not lazy.
important concept. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was Christians seem to get so confused about day seven. No, God doesn't need to sleep. God doesn't get tired. I don't get this. Well, read Psalm 132. Maybe read some ancient Near Eastern material. It's really pretty clear. God rests on His throne, and
Yes.
and the temple is the control center of the cosmos. So these are very important concepts, well known in the ancient world and to the Israelites, but they're just not part of our cultural river. So we get confused.
Hmm. I agree. I remember my father. He used to preach on church, and he would go and quote those passages because, like, hey, can you see God? He is the big guy. He's the boss of bosses, and he is resting, but he's working. So should do the same thing. So don't be lazy. So
Well, when God rests on His throne, when God rests on His throne, He's not taking a snooze there. He's actually doing the
yeah,
work and ruling. And Jesus says, "My Father is working even to this day," because if
yeah.
order is not maintained, it collapses. And so, order maintaining, which is the act of creation in the ancient world, has to be done moment by moment all the time.
I agree. I agree. Okay, let's move on here. I think we're doing pretty good. Give me just a moment here. I definitely need two screens. I need to buy another screen. Matthias, maybe you can help me with that. Okay, so chapter 5, Dr. Walton. I like this one. Genesis 2, the garden and the trees, sacred space, and priestly robes. What about that?
So, this is one of the places where perhaps my view has changed the most. And it's
Thank you for
largely
saying that.
it's largely due to a dissertation that my son wrote at St. Andrews, where he wrote on
Okay.
Genesis 2 through 4. And he's persuaded me, first of all, that we shouldn't think of the garden as God coming into the human realm, but rather of God
Okay.
putting people in the divine realm. And
Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah.
that's kind of a
I'm with your
different.
son. I'm with your son.
Yeah. Remember that in the ancient world, they they believed that the divine realm was actually in terrestrial space. Think about Mount
Yes.
Olympus for the Greeks. Think about Mount Sinai or Mount Zion for the Israelites. That sacred space was in. I mean, the divine realm was in terrestrial space. So that idea changes things a little bit
Hmm.
because previously I talked about the people having a priestly role, as your
Yeah.
slide shows there. But if this is actually the divine realm, then a priestly role doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And so
Hmm.
we do know of people in the ancient world serving as wardens in the divine realm. For instance, we have thousands of tablets from the Babylonian town of Sippar, where they describe the work of the sacred gardens. They are
Yeah.
divine space, they're adjacent to the temple. They
Hmm.
have date palms, which are harvested to feed the gods. And there
Yeah.
are wardens who work there. Um, they benefit from being in that space. They're responsible for caring for it. And so we have a parallel. Of course, the parallel breaks down because in Genesis, it's not people feeding God, it's God feeding people. So
It's the
again,
reverse. Yeah. Yeah.
similarities, but some reversals.
Yeah.
So I've changed my view about Adam and Eve's priestly roles, and that actually has some advantages because previously I had to talk about representation on two different levels. I talked about Adam and Eve as archetypes representing all of us, but then priestly representation is different because if they're as archetypes, they're all of us. As priests, they are not all of us. And so I had to have representation working on two different levels. If we're talking about people being put in the divine realm, now we're totally on the archetypal level. We don't have to work with complex bi-level representation. They're not serving priestly roles, so they're not representatives in that way, but they are still archetypes. So that was the advantage of that, and I thought the evidence that he offered was persuasive.
I agree with that. And I need to, Matthias, anything you want to add to that? Any comment?
Yeah, one question. It's related to the words about the commandment about subduing and ruling creation that was given to humanity in Genesis 1. Some modern some analysis have shown that those verbs subdue and rule tend to be very violent, like
Mm.
related to conquest. So how that factor into your new view of the role of Adam and Eve and humanity in general?
Mhm. They can be violent, but they're not always violent. I do have a couple pages of analysis of those words in the new book, and they have to do. I mean, domestication can fit into that category. Order bringing in general. Sometimes order bringing is a violent act. That doesn't mean that order is intrinsically violent. So,
Hmm.
in that sense, just because it can function in a more violent context doesn't mean it has to. And so, in that sense, I see that as God giving people an order bringing role. God, as creator, is order bringer. He creates us in his image, which means that we also are order bringers. And that's exactly how the text unfolds that. So, image of God is not something that's physical or psychological or mental or intellectual or developmental, any of those things. It's a task, it's a job he's given humanity that we are to be order bringers alongside of him. And so we are image bearers in that we are order bringers. And the other thing I developed on my idea of image in this new book is that I think it's very important to view the image as not individual but corporate. And that's not something I had said before in the previous work. That is, humanity is the image of God. So I wouldn't say I am the image of God. I would say I'm part
Mm.
of humanity, which is the image of
Big
God.
difference.
And
Yeah.
therefore, I can contribute to the image of God. I can participate in the image of God, but I am not the image of God. In the same way, I am not the body of Christ. It's the corporate church that is the body
The
of Christ.
corporate. Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
contribute, I can participate, I'm expected to, but I am not the body of Christ, and I am not the image of God. Humanity.
Mm.
So that was a new emphasis that I have
Hmm.
in this new book.
Yeah. There's something I want to show. Okay, I want to add something to that comment that Dr. Walton just made. That's very important clarification. Well, not clarification, but that changes a little bit the picture because I've been thinking of myself as the image of God so far. So I need to change that. I need to adjust my thinking on that. It makes sense. I'm not going to change just because you said it, Dr. Walton, but it makes sense. No, I mean, I'm honest with you.
Ah,
It makes sense because I'm just a human being. What difference should I make in the rest of the world? But if we're talking about the corporate, the humanity, everyone included, that's a big deal.
I should
That's
be
a big deal.
bringing order, but as part of humanity, this is our corporate role, our corporate task.
Yes. 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 I agree with that. Okay, there's something I want to show with you in the thing, the argument that Dr. Walton was making previously on the based on the work of his son. There's a book that came out. It was a festschrift. Yeah, I don't know this scholar, Dr. Walton. Maybe you know him. I'm not sure. Let me just put it right here. I think it's this one. Let me know if you can see it. I'm going to zoom it in. It's just a moment here. Okay, there you go.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. So, let me just definitely. I need two screens. I'm playing with myself now. Where are you? Okay, there it is. I need to just take it out and then expand it. Okay, there you go. So the festschrift is in honor of, I think it's a Scandinavian scholar. I think his name is Halvar Hagelia. I don't know him. First time I saw him, Dr. Walton. Maybe you know him, but
No,
there is
no.
yeah, there's a book. There is a contribution here on behalf of. Let me put. Okay, what is it? I found it right here. I think I lost it. Oh, there you go. This one. Jens Brunko Foyd. Please forgive me if I'm butchering your last name.
I know
But
him.
oh, you know him? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Because in that book chapter, in this contribution, Kofod, oh, please tell me how to pronounce it, Dr. Watson. Kofod, Kofod, Kofod. Thank you. I was just butchering the whole thing. Okay, so Kofod, he's arguing basically the same idea as your son, because he says, the author in Genesis is talking about terrestrial geography, but he's using that to point to cosmic, something transcendent, divine, out of terrestrial, the here us on Earth. So he's basically saying, yeah, it's hidden. There is geography, but the main point it's that the hidden up there. So with that you said about your son, I think I like this one. So I mean, I'm finding two scholars talking about this. Maybe we should pay attention to it a little bit more. Okay, so let's move on. Let me just take that off, and let me return to what we were before. Let me just put it right here. Okay, I think we're getting good with the time. We want to respect Dr. Walton's time as always. Okay, you should see it now. Let me know if you can see it there. There you go. Okay, so let's move on to chapter. I think it is chapter 6. So chapter 6. Okay, Genesis 2. Adam and Eve. Archetype, dust, and reeve. So, Dr. Walton, what can you tell us about this chapter?
So, with the new emphasis on them as archetypes, I was able to develop that a lot further. And my thinking has gone a lot further on that. I mean, I talked about them as archetypes before in Lost World of Adam and Eve, but again, I had that divide with their priestly role. Now I don't have that anymore. And the importance of archetypes is that I've come to believe that the Genesis author really doesn't want to talk about them as individuals. It's not interested in that conversation. They are all of us. They are there to be all of us. So we shouldn't be thinking them and us, then and now, before and after. We shouldn't set up those dichotomies. This is supposed to be a discussion of what we all are, who we all are. And so it's more focused on identity rather than something like, the real people in a real past. That doesn't answer the question about whether they are real people in a real past. It just addresses the literary question of what is it that Genesis is doing with them. After all, in the end, if I'm interested in authority, events don't have authority. text has authority. And therefore, I want to know what the text is doing with them, because that's where the authority is. Graphe. What is the narrator doing with them?
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to track with that. And so I'm not supposed to kind of get behind the literature and try to reconstruct events. That's not what the author is doing. The author is giving us a piece of literature that's understanding something important. And for me, I understand this is about human identity, not about human origins, not even about the origin of sin, not even about the promise of salvation. Those are all important things. Sin is a reality. Salvation is a wonderful gift. And in our modern cultural river, we're real interested in human origins from a scientific standpoint. But we have to track with the author. We have to see what's in their backpack. We have to examine their literature. And so I'm becoming more and more convinced that it's really out of line for me to try to think about whether they are real people in a real past, whether they are individuals. They are given archetypal names. His name is human. Her name is life. And they are there to represent those archetypal issues. So I've really stopped asking the question, how do they fit into anthropological science? Or are they created de novo, out of nothing, no predecessors, no processes?
Yeah.
They're my cultural river questions. I want to ask their cultural river questions. And so I'm interested in how the author is using them in what he's doing. And there, again, that's where I picked up this concept of archetypes. In the ancient world, whenever they talked about humans, the beginning of humans, they used archetypes. So in Akkadian literature, people are created from the blood of a slain rebel god. And that's making a statement. Rebellion flows in our veins.
Yeah.
In Egypt, they're made of numbers of different things depending on the text. But for instance, the tears of a god. And that's making an important statement. Divinity is part of our essence. And when Genesis talks about materials, it's not trying to give chemistry or biology or scientific origin.
Yeah.
When it talks about dust, its mortality pervades our flesh. This is identity. This is what humanity is. And whether they're ultimately rebels or ultimately divinity or ultimately mortal depends on the perspective that the author wants to give. So that's what I'm trying to pursue there. So dust and rib are saying something archetypally. They're not trying to comment on human origins. And I even point out that in 2:7, when we translate that the Lord God formed humanity from the dust, that the preposition from is not even there. And so this
is a good nugget.
That no, the Bible says we are made from dust. It doesn't say that.
People, pay attention. Hebrew scholar.
I translate that the Lord God formed humanity. ... dust
Period.
of the earth. That's what we are. We're dust of the earth.
Yeah.
So, again, we get all tied up with trying to answer our own questions.
Dr. Walton.
Own answers.
Sorry that I break in here, but you are telling us that this is your proposed translation, which is great. Now, let me ask you. Did you, by any chance, check on Robert Alter's translation?
No,
maybe you coincide. Okay, I will do it.
Yeah,
you have to do it.
Yeah, I actually know. It said he created man, humus of the earth, like humus, like
really
like organic substance.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't say of. It just say humus of the earth. That's what
Good
it
for him.
No, just again with Dr. Walton, he is advancing the conversation when he is proposing this translation, because that's the very. We all maybe I don't know you, Matias, but we grew up listening that translation. We are made from the dust. Amen. Let's
Yeah,
do
it was an apologetic, a bad apologetic argument. It was like, if you check all the elements that form the human body, and then you compare it with the composition of dust, is the same. And when I hear
really.
that, I say, but what kind of dust? Because there is dust that contains a lot of lead and arsenic, and the human body has
Oh
almost
God.
no lead. So
Yeah.
how does that?
And then people say it's stardust, and it shows that we are.
I know. I know who said that. I know, but I won't spill the beans. I will do it off camera. I know exactly who said that. And then this person went on to add, forget about Jesus. We're stardust. Ah. And I was like, dude, you must be joking. So yeah, I mean, I like this one. I appreciate Dr. Walton. He's giving us really gems here. So people who's watching later, they will know about this. Sorry, I received a message here. Okay, so let's move on. It's getting good. Okay, let's have the following slide right here, and this one has to do with the serpent, that little guy who screw up the whole thing. Like Walton, what can you tell us about chapter 3, the serpent and the fall? What new insights?
Well, of course, it's interesting that the serpent is never mentioned again in the Old Testament. And even when the New Testament makes reference
Okay.
back in Revelation 12, it's talking about a dragon, and it's a totally different thing. It just draws an association. It doesn't give an identity. So this idea that the
Okay.
serpent is Satan, of course, I had talked about that in my earlier books as well. But I developed that a little
Yeah.
more, the chaos creature idea of the serpent, that it's a chaos creature and what chaos creatures do and how they work in the ancient world. So I developed those things. But in this book, I also moved beyond that in terms of now saying I'm not convinced anymore that it's trying to present a fall. After all, that's not an Old Testament
Okay.
nor a New Testament concept. Our theological concept of fall is that it's a fall from grace. If you're going to have a fall from
Hmm.
grace, you have to have an initial status of grace, which I don't see the Old or New Testament establishing. So, again, if we're
Hmm.
talking about this as referring to identity, then this is to say, this is what we all are. We all choose to grab our own pathway to order. That's what the knowledge of good and evil is. It's knowing what constitutes order and disorder. And they chose to be autonomous instead of bringing God's order, to bring order for themselves. And that is what humans always do.
Hmm.
Isaiah 53, all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned, every one of us, to our own way. That's a description of what Genesis 3 is talking about. So again, I don't think that we should be thinking about a before and after, but rather that this is describing our identity. Humanity seizes order for itself. We were created corporately to be image bearers, order bringers, and we decided we wanted to do that on our own. We decided every day, every one of us decided every day to bring order for ourselves with our own benefit. And so this is describing who we are, not describing kind of something that happened that those two crazy people did way back then, and now we're stuck with all the results of all of that. Oy vey, why did they have to do that? Now
Yeah.
we're stuck, poor people are stuck with their craziness. No, 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 no.
Stop it.
Genesis is saying this is the human plight that we are all guilty of and constantly engage in.
I like the way you put it. Just a couple of comments before. There is rebellion running through our veins. I mean, I am a rebellious being by nature. I'm constantly, and I have no issues acknowledging right up front that. Uh, So yeah, I agree with that. Now I need to ask you about the serpent, Dr. Walton. I know of one translation. I don't know you, Matthias, but I know of one translation in English. It's an English translation. I don't have the name right here. I can look it up.
International Standard Version.
Thank you, sir. That's why you're here. Okay. In that translation, it doesn't translate it like the serpent was, crafty and the rest of no. It renders the text the shining one. What's going on in there? Do you endorse that translation? It's overstated translation. What do you think about that?
I think that's based on a similar Hebrew term, a Hebrew root that means shining, but there's really no reason to think of that being the case here. Some have also suggested some connection to a Hebrew root in the PL nichesh, which refers to divination. But those look a little bit to me like word manipulation, that there's no reason to see relationship between them. Everything that we see in the context suggests that serpent is the one that is the way that we should translate it.
I know a guy who would go and say, "Oh God, that's semantics gymnastics."
Yeah,
that's not there.
Well,
okay.
I'd
rather ask.
Just because words are similar doesn't mean that we can just pull them in where we want to.
Yeah. There are rules.
Yeah. Yes.
Matthias, any comments?
Yeah, it seems Tim Mackey from the Bible Project, he actually, because we all know that the serpent is not mentioned ever in the Old Testament apart from Genesis 3. There is some reference in Ezekiel when it talks about someone who was in the Garden of Eden, a rebel one. But the thing is that Tim, he likes to put the imagery that there's like the seed of the serpent is like people who act in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
For example, he put the reference as Goliath. His armor was of bronze, which is nahash. The idea that it was like Goliath was like dressed like a serpent because it's the same word or similar to nahash. And he put like the example of Sisera in Judges, that he gets killed by a woman, as the seed of the woman, and he gets his head crushed literally. So it's kind of like, so it's not something that is mentioned, but it seems like there is like a background in some Old Testament stories that allude to or make reference to that. So I don't know if
those are often referred to as hyperlinks that kind of make subtle connections. And I'm suspicious of them. They exist. There are hyperlinks that exist, but it's something with any tool that can be pushed beyond what it can tolerate. So again, I want to track with the author's intentions. And these people would say, well, that is the author's intentions because he's using a word that sounds the same. Did he have a choice? Were there other words he could have used? Did he use a specific word that would have been out of place? And I have lots of other questions with that. Yes. So I'm more inclined to think that the serpent, as a chaos creature, represents chaos, non-order. The serpent's seed, therefore, is all non-order, and therefore we are struggling against non-order. That's what really 3:15 says. 3:15 doesn't say who's going to win. 3:15 says that I'll put enmity between you and the serpent, between your seed and her seed. You will crush his head, he will crush your heel. Okay, crush. Whatever you translate them, some translate them the same, some translate them different, but they are the same Hebrew verb. And both strikes, let's call them that, both strikes are potentially mortal blows. That is, if you step on a serpent's head, it might kill them, it might not. If a poisonous serpent bites your heel, it might kill you, it might not. But the point is that throughout time, your seed, her seed, generation to generation, there's going to be these exchanges of blows. The importance of that, as I described in 3:15, and this was an insight that my son had, is that instead of God fighting chaos monsters like in the Babylonian epics and things like that, Egyptian material, instead of God fighting the chaos creature in order to bring out creation, there's no chaos creatures fighting God in Genesis 1. But in Genesis 3, now people have taken the battle for themselves because they've taken the order bringing on themselves. And now God says, okay, guess what? That means that you've got the struggle. That means that from generation to generation, you are going to have to fight chaos and try to bring order.
I
And
like that.
it
I
makes
mean,
a lot.
Dr. Walton is coming here just full fire. He's dropping gems after gem here. I like that one. I mean, I have never heard about that. Oh,
Yeah.
Dr. Walton, there is a book on what Matthias was saying previously. There is actually a book that points to that direction, where Goliath is depicted, portrayed as that seed from the serpent in Genesis. Maybe it's a literary, rhetorical device. I don't know. You know better. You're the scholar. But that book argues for that view.
I would have to
Yeah.
look at the evidence that they have.
Yes.
I'm familiar with, not with the main author, but it looks like Jason DeRushi wrote the foreword.
Yes.
I know
Let
Jason.
me zoom it in so you can see it there. Yeah.
But I'd have
Jason
to look at
DeRushi.
the case they make. But I'm kind of suspicious about it. But that, I'd have
As
to
we
look
all
at
should.
Yeah, one final. I would like to make a final question related to that, and the connection and the mention of Eden in Ezekiel and the apparent parallel passage in Isaiah 14, especially because in Ezekiel the rebel was in Eden.
So in Ezekiel 28, the one that's in Eden is called the cherub. The cherub, of course, we know from Genesis 3 is the one who's guarding the way to tree. He's God's servant. The serpent is not in that role. The serpent's not guarding the way. He's offering an invitation. And so it's not the same at all. There's nothing in Ezekiel 28 that is the same, corresponds to what we know of the serpent in Genesis 3. We don't even know that the serpent was in the Garden of Eden in Genesis 3. After all, could Adam and Eve interact with somebody outside? We're not told where the serpent is, just that they had a conversation. So there's really nothing that carries over. In Ezekiel 28, it's pretty clear that it's being used to describe the Prince of Tyre, because it actually tells you that, and because then it goes on to his specific situation where it's through trade that he has corrupted himself. So the cherub in the garden are part of an illustration, an analogy. The fact that the Prince of Tyre has these great resources that he's exploiting for personal benefit. It would be like if the cherub guarding the tree of life opened a fruit stand and started selling it. That would be it. So, and Isaiah 14 is similar kind of trouble. I've written about both of them extensively in a book that I did with my son called Demons and Spirits in Biblical Theology.
Yeah. Okay, I need to say this. Okay, I understand. I know because I have done my homework on this subject matter. So at least I have tried. Let's be a little bit of humble in that part. I tried to do my homework. So Dr. Walton, maybe that's a minority view, right? That this is about the serpent in Genesis 3 and everything. But would you at least concede that there is like the rebellion of a divine being as a backdrop in those passages, namely Ezekiel 28 and Isaiah 14? Or you don't see anything at all of that sort?
They're about humans. It's not about the rebellion of a divine being. Isaiah 14 may be based on that, an analogy of such a thing in mythology, but I don't see anything there that is connected to Genesis 3 or to a fall of Satan. I don't think
Thank you, sir.
the Bible offers a view of a fall of Satan.
Thank you. Yeah. It is my understanding that that was a view developed during the church fathers, or do we have evidence? Something even prior than that?
Which view?
That this is the fall of Satan. In
Well,
Isaiah
Isaiah
14.
14 and Ezekiel 28. Yeah, the early church fathers, I think places like Tertullian and things of that sort, they
Mm,
didn't get fully developed until Gregory the Great's Moralia.
mm.
That's 7th century or something. So
Okay. Okay. We're going to free Dr. Walton from that discussion. No more. Let's continue. Okay. But thank you for it's appreciated he is addressing those questions. We're on the final part.
You lost audio. Marv, your audio. You're mute. Still mute.
You have one now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
No. Okay.
oh,
let
no,
me,
it's too loud. Too loud.
Okay. How about now?
That's better. Yeah.
Thank you, sirs. Sirs. How do you say sirs in English? Sirs, sires. We're not we're not British. We're not Brits. Okay, let's put the last slide, a couple of slides here. These are the final ones. I think it has to do with, let's see, yeah, the pronouncement and fall. What can you tell us about that, Dr. Walton?
Well, I already talked about 3:15.
Genesis 3.
But 3:16 is very important because it's a passage that we make a big deal about, as if gender roles are being established here as punishment for the woman, that the curse has placed on them. And of course, ever since the beginning of my writings, I've objected to that view, but I've got a little more information now on 3:16. And generally, I would say it's not pain. First of all, it's not a curse.
Mm-hmm.
The serpent is cursed, the land is cursed,
Okay.
men and women are not. It's consequences, not punishment. There's a difference between the two. When you tell a child not to touch a hot stove and they touch the hot stove and get burnt, that's not their punishment. That's the consequences. Okay, so there's a difference between the two.
Okay.
So these are consequences, not punishment. It's not a curse. It is therefore descriptive, not prescriptive. It doesn't tell you how God is now making things to be. It's rather because he has turned over the battle to them, 3:15, that he has brought about this scenario that we face in 16 through 19. So it's not a curse. Secondly, it's not pain, it's anxiety. It's not in childbearing in the first phrase, it's in conception. So anxiety in conception, which was a big deal in the ancient world. And then in anxiety, you will bring forth children. That's not about labor pains. That's about the whole issue of, will the child survive? Will the child be healthy? Will I survive? Those are all anxiety creating scenarios based in childbearing. And this is one of the main areas where people are faced with jeopardy, with disorder, with things coming apart. And it's a critical issue. So then when it moves on to a desire is a term that needs a context. It doesn't have inherent in it something about conflict or control or things like that. It can simply reflect a desire of any sort. You have to get it from context. It's clear in 3:16 that her desire is for order in this threat to her life and to her child's life. And so that desire is for order. It will focus on her husband because husbands in the ancient world were supposed to bring order for the family. And so, of course, it will focus on her husband and in general her community, because that's what people do. When they're faced with disorder, they seek community. And in this case, the husband, who is supposed to bring order, because that's the role of the husband in the ancient world. And therefore, he will rule over her. That rule is not a dominating, domineering, tyrannical, oppressive rule. All its usage in Hebrew Bible, which is several hundred, ruling is an order bringing activity, not a tyrannical activity. Sure, they knew that there were abusive husbands. Sure, they knew that there were tyrannical kings. But ideally, ruling is supposed to bring order. And that's the husband then will bring the order that's expected by providing community. So it really has nothing to do with God punishing people, especially punishing women, with gender subordination. We're totally in the wrong backpack here.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Finally, last but not least, Dr. Walton, Genesis and science.
Yeah. So a couple of points that I made here. One thing was one of emphasis. That is, we keep thinking about Genesis and science in terms of competing views of origins. And we have to stop doing that. The text isn't trying to talk to us about origins in any kind of scientific sense that would be competing with science. The Bible's about agency, that God is the agent who has carried out creation. It doesn't describe mechanisms, how God did it, when God did it, exactly what he did. It's just he's the agent, he is the creator. And so agency and not mechanism. Science, on the other hand, in stark contrast, is all about mechanism and can't talk about agency. So science, whether it's evolutionary models or other models, are talking about the mechanisms by which life came about as we know it today. But it's not talking about agency. Science really can't address agency. So we have Bible talking about agency and science talking about mechanisms, in which case they're really not giving competing ideas. They're talking about different things, different perspectives on the same reality. So I talk about that some and set up those terms. I also talk about the idea that for the Bible, they're less interested in what we came from and what God has made us to be. God made us more than what he made us from. So let's not talk about amino acids or lines of primates or dust from the ground. God made us more, and that's the point. God made us his image bearers. He made us order bringers. That's tasks that he gave us, identity that he gave us. And he made Israel more than what they were from. They were from this mixed ethnic stock, and he made them his chosen people, his select ones, his covenant people. And so he made them more than what he made them from. And as Christians, Christ does the same for us. He makes us more than what he makes us from. We were, as Paul says, you were adulterers and thieves and murderers, but God took you and made you his people. You are a new creation. You are crucified in Christ, but now you live, but not you, but Christ in you. And the idea that we are new creation. And that's, again, the idea that God has made us more than what he made us from. And that's addressed many times in the epistles. So I think we have to try to adopt a more theological, biblical posture and deal with what the Bible's telling us instead of trying to fill in all the scientific and historical background issues that are part of our backpack, but not part of the Bible's backpack.
Yeah, that's a good note to end on here. Matthias, any funny comments?
No, basically, but that's very well said. Yeah.
So, sir, you were well served. Now, Dr. Walton, again, thank you. It's an honor to have you on. Thank you for accepting our invitations to come on to the show, to talk about scholarship, to talk about your books, to talk about the Bible, to talk about, I mean, I've seen a pattern in social media. There are a bunch of people who they were Christians. Now they call themselves atheists or whatever. But for some weird, or maybe not weird, but for some reason, they feel drawn to this kind of discussion in terms where scholarship, authors, books, archaeology, everything is just thrown into the mix. And they are fascinated and enthralled with this. So I was wondering myself the other day, if only we had this kind of discussions at church, maybe, just maybe, we didn't have those people losing their faith because they were not told any specifics. I remember there's a podcast. You were in there, Zach Miller, what your pastor didn't tell you. but it's a good reference that this is a phenomenon, Dr. Walton, going on even today in our churches.
Mhm.
I mean, I love the church. As I've told you before, I love the church. I love Christ. I love God. But I despise the way that we treat the Bible, or we even talk about Bible stuff. And many people, the only thing they can do is, oh no, get off, stop it, knock it off with the intellectual, because that can pop up or whatever. No, dude, we need to have this kind. We need to have this kind of conversation, just like this one that we had with Dr. Walton. So,
And
Dr. Walton, just your comment on it. Yeah, I would like to hear it from you.
well, podcasts are one way to get to that audience, but also, I travel all around the country, all around the world, and I
Yes.
come into churches and I give these kinds of talks. Of course, it's only certain churches that would invite me, that are interested in the conversation. So there's still plenty of churches
Uh,
that have a very negative opinion about what I do, and that's okay. You can't talk about this stuff without putting somewhat of a target on your back, and
yeah.
but you got to do it. I mean, that's better than not talking about it at all. And so I think that I encounter churches where they do want to talk about these things. Just last week, I was at a seminar where I had 45 pastors that I was teaching Genesis 1 through 11.
Great.
And their
It's
their
awesome.
goal was to then put together a sermon series and go back and preach it in their churches. So,
Yeah.
we keep working at it little by little.
Yeah. I remember one critic of yours. I won't spill the name here, but he was criticizing Dr. Walton. Oh, Dr. Walton is reading too much Hebrew into the text. And your answer in another podcast was, well, it's the Hebrew Bible. The Hebrew is right there.
You can't read Hebrew into the text, it's already there.
It's already there. So yeah, I agree with that.
Like,
Okay,
I'm-
people.
yeah,
Oh, Matthias,
I
go ahead.
remember
Go ahead.
I asked the question. I remember. Yeah,
I knew you had another question. That's why I was
no, it's
just
with
killing
the
time
brief
here.
time. Brief time, yes, yes, to not take much of Dr. Walson's time. Yeah, because I'm actually writing my thesis, and it's related to how the biblical authors from the Old and the New Testament, it's a theology thesis, view and understood the astronomical objects, celestial objects. And one of the things that I found by, for example, reading The Lost World and now reading Genesis as ancient cosmology was that the ancients saw the stars as gods, but sometimes in the iconography they make a distinction that, for example, in the tablet of Shamash, you have the ocean, then the firmament, and in the firmament are the stars, and the gods are like over the
Maybe I can pull up a
the
picture here.
yes.
Mhm.
So
Go ahead.
the thing is, yeah,
Continue.
so my question is, so the ancients saw the stars as gods, but at the same time like different, like in Egypt, where the solar sun disk is different, but also Ra. That's the way in which they saw that, and it's also in the Bible with the stars sometimes are related to the sons of God or the angels.
So, yes, there are reflections of both ways of thinking. I've got a chapter on that in the New Explorations book. I'm trying to figure out. It's one of the FAQs. Um, uh, boy, I have to find which one it is. But at any rate, Francesca Rochberg has written quite a lot about it, and
Oh
I
yeah, she's
refer
good.
to her material. So yes, there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance in all of that. They kind of hold on to two ideas at once, and that's an important thing to understand. But they certainly don't think of them as material objects the way that we do.
Yeah, because reading the work of an Egyptologist, and I was reading that she talked about the iron iron in Egypt, how that came from meteorites. Oh, there is the Shamash tablet.
Yep.
tablet. Yeah, you could in the middle of the tablet is just I think that's the symbol of the sun god, but also Shamash is there, so you have the that's a copy.
Oh, look at that! Look at
Yeah.
that! He's
That's all.
showing up. I gotta tolerate that.
Okay.
Thank
So
you for that.
Mhm. That's great.
Uh,
So
there is
Okay.
there is some controversy about what those four circles represent, whether they represent the stars or not.
oh,
I think I cited an article, like an 80-page article by Christopher Woods uh, on this tablet, and he talks about it.
hmm.
Oh, by the way,
So
Francesca. Sorry, it's just I was going to ask you. She's a cereologist, right?
Yes, at Berkeley.
Thank you. Go ahead, Matias.
yeah, so for example, in the tablet, I think the symbol in the middle is the sun, is the code. The was represented the sun, but also is Shamash, the sun god. So it's the two
Right. How
things
much
are
is
in this.
sitting on the throne there,
Mhm.
and the big disc in the middle is the sun. But again, Christopher Woods. Let me grab it a second here. I think I've got it.
Yeah, that's better.
Hmm. Well, it's here, but I'm not seeing it right away. But
Okay.
at any rate, it's
So the-
I think it's footnoted in my book, so
Mhm.
you'd be able to get to it from there. It's in the Journal of Near Eastern Studies,
Mhm. So
Journal of Cuneiform Studies, but one of those.
So there was like because one of the I think the main objection of William Lane Craig, I don't know if he changed now his perspective, because he
He
was one
hasn't
of the
changed.
few who was against the
No, I love
yeah,
him.
and we all love Craig, but the thing is that he was against the idea of flat or solid dome cosmology, and his main objection was if the stars were embedded in the firmament, but the ancients saw that the stars move during the night. So if the dome, if the firmament is a ball of iron, how it's possible that objects that are encrusted in the ball of iron move at the same time? So it's like the ball move. That's was his argument. So I don't know. That's a valid objection, or the ancients just didn't care about those details.
It's Western logic. He's
Ah.
pulling things out of our own backpack. Read the Assyriologists on it. There's plenty of stuff out there. And again, Rochberg is a great place to start. She's written several books on it. But
Mhm.
again, to
She's
try to
good.
appeal to our kind of logic to understand how they thought is inherently problematic.
Yeah. Just to finish the topic. When I was research the topic, because I have a background in astronomy, and I was reading an Egyptologist, and she was talking about how iron and sky were related in Egyptian, because they thought that the sky was made of iron, because they found iron meteorites before the Iron Age. The only way in which you could get iron was with meteorites, and that's my idea. But the thing is that there is a type of meteorite, pallasita, which is made of iron, nickel, and also olivine crystals. And you can see pictures of them, which is iron, and inside the iron there are crystals. So maybe the Egyptians found those meteorites, and they saw that there was iron and also shiny stuff encrusted in the iron. So maybe they're related to, oh, that's a piece of heaven, and those crystals are like the stars. So maybe they got that idea with that with those samples that they found.
I would want to find some ancient texts that interpret them that way before I would
Yeah.
be.
Remember, he's a textual guy.
Mhm.
He's a textual guy.
Yeah.
He's a a book that is very often cited on this type of subject matters is Wayne Horowitz, Cosmic Geography,
Yes.
which is a
Cosmology,
classic. I think it's
Yeah.
It's a great book. It's a great
Mhm.
book.
great book. Yeah, is he still alive or
Yes.
he's no longer?
Yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah.
we should interview him.
In Israel. He's at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
reach out to him.
And my last
Matthias,
comment.
do you have
Yes.
any other
Yeah,
questions?
the last one. Was there any change in the view, or is there any change in the cosmology of different biblical authors, or is more or less constant? And I'm thinking about the reference to the cosmic tree in Daniel chapter 4, in which
Mm.
Nebuchadnezzar is compared to the giant tree that is basically with his his
cosmic tree.
branches in the heavens and the roots to the underworld. So has or it's more or less constant.
I think it's more or less constant. Again, we only have the cosmic tree. It's referred to in Ezekiel as well as Daniel. So they're both toward the end of the period. Those are the two clearest examples. But there are two different concepts here. In Mesopotamian literature, you've got the world tree, which is what you have in Daniel 4 and Ezekiel, but you also have the sacred tree. And I write about this in my Daniel commentary. The sacred tree is only in the iconography. It's not discussed in text. It's all over the iconography, the Assyrian sacred tree and the guardians on either side. It's all over the iconography, but never described in text. The world tree is described in texts, but is never in the iconography. And some have tried to push them together. I think that's problematic. But at any rate, that's kind of an oddity that one's in the iconography and one's in text.
That's the sacred tree is the Meshu tree that Marduk hid during the flood.
Yes.
That was related to the stone, like a special stone, Meshu stone. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I need to brag about this because last time Dr. Walton was on the show, he shared this with us. And it has to do with his NICAD commentary on Book of Daniel. Oh, look at that. How beautiful. Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
I want to put my hands on it.
So this volume's coming out in November, as it says. The second volume we've now submitted, so it's working through things at the publisher. It's not going to come out at the same time, but it's in process.
Oh, my goodness. We're getting two Daniel's commentaries from very prestigious series. This one from Dr. Walton and Aubrey Buster, I think it is.
Buster.
And the other one is from Michael Siegel from the Anchor Bible.
Right.
So we're being
they're very different commentaries.
Yes, I know. But what I was going to say is that we are getting our wish list expanded and expanded and expanded, and our budget is suffering. Okay, Matias, any more questions?
I haven't formulated any questions. Maybe
Dr. Walton for each one question.
Yeah, maybe the final question will be. I think I don't have the exact citation, but it's actually from Daniel blog of his first volume about Ezekiel. I think he argues that the living creatures in Ezekiel 1 and Ezekiel 10, they are the constellations because the phrase full of eyes could be understood as stars. I don't know what. Do you have any comments on that?
I don't recall that conversation. I've got Block's commentary here, but no, I'd have to look at his evidence.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure he must have sources where stars are referred to as eyes, but I'd have to look what he had.
Stars or eyes or shiny stuff, because like stars. I think they were compared to gems probably in the ancient world. I don't know.
Well, there are eye stones. Whether the stars were ever called eye stones, I don't know.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
So, my son is also an artist besides a theologian, and he's got a wonderful drawing of Ezekiel's vision. And in his rendition of it, there are wheels within wheels, and there are gem eye stones set in the wheels. So that's how he rendered it. So that can be found. That's in the Cultural Background Study Bible that I edited. It's also in the 5 volumes Zondervan Illustrated Bible Background Commentary in Ezekiel. You can also find it online if you go to fineartamerica.com and look up Jonathan Walton. You'll find lots of his artwork.
Did it
Yeah.
look anything like that? Those
No.
eyes?
No, 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 but at the same time, it's as the ancients found bones of the dinosaurs and they start talking about dragons, they also found meteorites. So they say, "Oh, this shiny stuff," or for example, um, there is when thunder lightning strikes the sun,
Mhm.
it becomes glass. So probably they found pieces of glass after a lightning strike, and they said, "Wow, this is shiny thing came from the heavens." So
You know, if I can chime in here, if I were an ancient person,
mhm.
that would be purely logical thinking. Just looking at phenomena, whatever thunder or meteorite, whatever, that would be a very reasonable thing to to think about what is going on in heaven. For example, I look up the sky; it's blue. Oh,
Mhm.
they thought of there is a
Water.
hanging cosmic sea. Yeah, makes sense. Kind of makes sense because it's blue, big, and oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't consider it to be that very far fetched view.
Yes, and also it's and also I think that iron before the Iron Age could only be found in meteorites, so it was like a celestial divine metal, and also that's why metallurgy it's related to divine knowledge with the Apkallu and other
Well,
sages.
in our Daniel commentary, when we get to the statue made out of the different metals, we have some discussion of each one of them, and you can see some of what I've got
Yeah,
there, some of the resources.
he's teasing us. He's teasing us. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm gonna stop it here because I don't.
All right. Well, it's been good
Yeah,
talking to you guys.
nice pleasure, Dr. Walton. It's been awesome. Matthias, thank you for being here and dropping those questions to Dr. Walton. Again, people, just check the interviews that we have on our storage in the pipeline there. Just to let you know, Professor Lawrence Schiffman, that's a scholar, he's coming onto the show to talk about okay, yeah, you already know that's his girls and everything. And also we have Florentino Garcia Martinez, another Dead Sea Scrolls scholar. He's coming to talk about his most recent book, the Dead Sea Scrolls translation and commentary. Again, Dr. Walton, final words.
Have a great day.
You need to say something in Spanish. I won't let you go.
Yeah.
Muchas gracias.
Yeah, there you go. So with Matthias and Marv, we say bye bye until the next time.
Okay.